Welcome to Hairblazers, the podcast where we empower you to disrupt the beauty industry, starting with your chair and your salon. You can focus on running your business and tune in here to find out how to keep it moving forward. My name's Naomi. I'm the marketing manager for the Aveda Institute Winnipeg and for the Verde Salon Group.
And I'm Roberto, owner of Verde Salon and the Aveda Institute Winnipeg.
Today, we're joined by a very special guest. We have Jodi Ohama with us. She's a certified leadership coach and consultant, and she's worked with us at the salon for the last almost a year or so. We've both known her for a little bit longer than that, but we've had a great time working with her, and she's done a lot for us. So welcome, Jodi.
Welcome, Jodi.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So nice to have you here. So one thing I really want to start out by learning more about is if we could just hear more about yourself and your journey.
Oh my gosh, my journey. It's a long one. Like, oh my gosh, in this industry, I've been in the industry for just over 30 years, which is crazy to me. I've had many different roles. That's, as a makeup artist, I've started in reception, I've been in sales. I went to school for adult development. So then I got into education and curriculum development for a beauty product distributor, primarily focusing on customer service and management stuff and financial benchmarking and communication. That eventually led me to become a partner. So a salon owner with a partner where I helped grow the company to 4 locations. So as a multi-location salon owner. And throughout all of this, I've really enjoyed sharing information and learning with others. So, I've been sort of learning and sharing information with other small business owners. So after my business partnership ended in 2020, I sort of invested in learning additional skills to help others. And I became a certified leadership coach. And also I'm currently working on my master's in leadership. So I'm a bit of a junkie around leadership and I love this industry. So now I get to work with leaders and teams like yourself. So I've been working with the salon, your salon, for over a year. And yeah, Roberto, I've known you for many years. So now I get to work with various service-based businesses as a certified leadership coach. And I'm also an Ivy certified coach where I get to work with executives on leadership development. So very different from our industry. And I'm also a consultant for Cunity Inc., which I love. It was a company that really helped in my salon business. So now I get to share Cunity tools and practices with other businesses to help implement sort of breakthroughs in, leadership, profitability, growth, engagement, and execution. So yes, a big, long journey, 30 years.
Sounds like a great journey, Jodi. And I can attest to your willingness to share. I've known you since Salon World. And when we opened in 2017, I don't know if you remember, but I was like 1 month in and completely lost in our financials. And you were so open to sharing your template with me for budgeting. And that was such a huge help. So thank you so much. Rewinding all the way back to 2017.
Oh, yeah. I love sharing. And, again, I learned from so many others. So it's just, paying forward. Yeah. Thanks, Roberto.
Yeah, and I think the first interaction I had with you was I took a class that you were teaching, and I feel like that just really set the tone for, the entire time I've known you since, because one thing I find is you really just you love people, you love learning, and that really is very apparent in everything you do and when we've worked with you, and it's been so great.
Thanks, Naomi. Yeah, that's when I was working for the distributor. Yeah, I love doing that. Again, I don't think any of us, I believe that we are better together. Yeah, so it's really this was a natural progression for me, becoming a coach for sure.
Yeah, and you've had so many different roles within this industry, and that's one of the really cool things about this industry is that there's so many different paths you can take and so many places you can go. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about what made you want to become a coach in the first place.
Oh, yeah, it is that, it's a great question. It is that even when I was a salon owner, my favorite thing of owning the salon was really helping people be their best selves. That was really sort of my mantra. Is how do I help people become their best selves? How do I make this business the best business it can be? Of course, that's always about the people. So me becoming a coach, it's just so rewarding to be able to do that. And to help people achieve their goals, to be part of that by helping people, become more conscious or more intentional. Yeah, as a coach, I get to create space for that. It's not only just for achieving those goals, but for transformation. There's something so fulfilling about being part of that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for us, probably one of the biggest things you helped us out with was execution, because we always have all these ideas and all these plans and all these really cool things that we want to implement in our business. But those plans don't always end up ending in action. And, I think you've really increased that percentage for us by a really high amount. I remember when we first started working together, you were like, I think only 20% of strategies actually get executed or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but
That
it
sounds
was,
about right for us at
yeah.
that time.
Yeah, but it was low. And I think we've really turned that around in a big way. So that's for sure made a big difference for us.
Yeah, that's why, Cunity is it's an amazing company. They have these simple and visual tools that really do help businesses create those breakthroughs. And execution was such a big part. Like when I implemented Cunity tools into my salon, it was huge. So I love being able to do that for others, help others. Yeah.
Jodi, you mentioned what you loved about coaching. What do you find most challenging about coaching?
Oh gosh. It as a coach, it is about meeting people where they're at. And sometimes as a coach, and you'll probably even find this as leaders sometimes, like sometimes I want something for someone, but maybe they're just not ready. They're not ready to go there. So the biggest challenge I have as a coach is like, okay, it's just like my job is to create space. My job is to create awareness, but I can't make people do anything. If any parents, anyone who's a parent knows that it's very difficult to make people do something. It really is about just creating the conditions that change can happen. So I find sometimes I struggle with that, where I really want something for someone because I can see, like, if they just do this one thing, like what an impact it would make on themselves and on their business. But you can't, yeah, you can just create the conditions. So I always, I strive to be better at that. Like, how do I create those conditions to, yeah,
Yeah, well, they have to want it for themselves, right?
absolutely.
So you've worked with a lot of different executives, a lot of different leaders, a lot of different professionals in our industry and outside of our industry. So what I want to know is how you define success and how salons should define success for themselves.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I think defining success as an individual, it's probably different for every individual, but for how I define success is being able to contribute to something larger than myself, to be able to share my gifts, to be seen and to share my gifts. Also to make a great living while, honoring my values. I think that to me is my definition of success. How a salon could define success. Cunity has a great definition for company prosperity, and that is, a successful salon is profitable, they have a great culture, and they have a competitive edge. And I think those, that is a successful salon. Great culture for sure, competitive edge you need, and of course a salon needs to be profitable, otherwise they're not sustainable.
Yeah, touching on that profitability element, obviously there's been a ton of change in the market over the last few years with COVID, even just like, the rate of digitization for the beauty industry has changed vastly over the last 10 years. And there's a lot of salons who've been in the industry for a lot longer than that. So what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that salons are facing today?
Um, Yeah, that's a great question. The biggest challenges, well, I think like most industries right now, like there's a big focus on recruiting talent. A lot of the salons I work with didn't used to have a strong recruitment strategy. They built businesses that naturally attracted staff. But then through the pandemic, people left our industry, and then others who stayed, they want to work less. They've shortened their hours. So that's really sort of created a lot of opportunities to hire more staff. So I think that is one of the challenges salons are faced with right now, is like coming up, like, how do you come up with a compelling recruitment and retention strategy? There's it's a challenge that lots of salons, like I said, are faced with. But I think a bigger challenge that salons might face, as we head into a recession, is having to do more with less. We know that small businesses, the profit margin isn't gigantic. We have a small profit margin. And with that, you can't just buy yourself, you can't just buy your way out of things. You can't just bring on additional people or additional resources. So, I think that challenge of like, how do we do more with less, I think will be something that salons will be facing in the next while. Yeah. And this one, I've always thought about this even before the pandemic. And this is that salons, you know, for a long time, salons just there was a lack of innovation in salons. In prior to the pandemic, nothing much had changed in the salon world. The biggest sort of disruption we had was salon suites. So suites where, people were going to work in these small suites. So I think that a big challenge that salons might face is this lack of innovation, doing the same things that they've always done. Our world is changing so quickly that there is something, we have to be innovating. We have to be somehow having newness and freshness in the industry. It's important for employees. It's important for our guests, for sure. It's important for our leaders and owners just to be, to be able to stay engaged in the business. So without innovation or renewal, salons do run the risk of becoming obsolete or uninspired or disengaged.
One thing that I wanted to touch on there, Jodi, you mentioned hiring right now, definitely a challenge, and that's something the industry is facing internationally, because I hear a lot about it in the US as well. But you did touch on profitability, and I think this is one that has been a topic for a very long time. So when you're coaching one of your clients, what are some of the key areas that you're looking at to increase profitability or help them get to where they want to go? What are usually the challenges that they're faced with when it comes to profitability?
Yeah, I think I think profitability is sometimes it's a lack of focus. Like sometimes there's an unawareness around, like I say this often, there's the formula for running a successful business is you increase your sales and you decrease your costs. Like that's it. You have to be a profitable company. It's those two things. I think sometimes there's a lack of awareness around where, how does one increase their sales and or how does one decrease their costs? Sometimes people actually just aren't aware of what their costs are, their expenses. They're not using benchmarks. They don't have financial literacy.
I think you nailed one right there, which is financial literacy. And I know that communities address this. We've actually brought this program into the school to really start at an early point in your career to understand what financials are, what the definitions are, and really how to manage them through the long term. I think that's going to have a tremendous impact. But I definitely do agree with you. Financial literacy is definitely a challenge right now, and I see it come up often.
And if you look at how many stylists go on to become salon owners, and if you look at how many stylists don't even understand what they're earning, don't even understand what their commission percentage works out to, or however their pay structure actually ends up resulting in what they're taking home, that literacy piece is such a key component.
Yeah, again, it's like how do what I love about this industry, what's so exciting about this industry is that there is no ceiling. People are entrepreneurs in the business. So there's this potential to make a lot of money. But again, like if people aren't aware of how they can increase their sales and decrease their costs, it really is it doesn't set them up for success long term, right?
So what are some of the ways that you as a coach help salons tackle and overcome these challenges?
Those challenges that profitability for sure. It is around, understanding financials and of course all the business building things that you can do and decreasing expenses. But honestly, like with those other challenges too, like, the innovation, the doing less with more and, this even recruiting, like I think as a coach, helping people get really clear on what is important, like what's needed right now, and then prioritizing. Again, we spoke about the execution. We have, of course, in our industry, in the creative industry, there's a lot of great ideas, but how you can't do everything. You have to be really focused and prioritize. So prioritizing, having an execution strategy, I help, yeah, as a coach doing that. And then also supporting people in doing the work. Sometimes as a coach, I'm an accountability partner, just where, or I just again create that safe space, or I challenge people to create time for themselves for imagination. People can't get so stuck in the weeds that they can't see the bigger picture. It's so important to be able to zoom in and zoom out and to really look at the bigger picture, to be able to see the bigger picture.
Mhm.
Yeah, as a salon, I would say that we definitely saw most value in execution and being able to prioritize what's most important right now. As a salon owner, it's probably the most difficult for me because it involves patience on a lot of the ideas that you have to kind of push back in the calendar. But most definitely, execution was and prioritizing was a really a big help for us. One of the things that I've noticed as well too is that when we brought on coaching and community in general as well too, you don't necessarily see the impact to the bottom line immediately. It does take some time, but we definitely start seeing the benefits when you prioritize what's most important, execute at a high level. That drives to the bottom line. So you might not start seeing the results until 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a year after, but then it becomes something very sustainable that you can depend on and plan around.
So with the profitability, what's interesting is like some of the salons I work with, they actually they're less profitable on the bottom line, which is kind of funny to say. But again, it depends on, depends on the work that they are wanting to do. So for example, if a business, say I work with some accounts that the owner really wants to step out of the business, they don't want to be, um, they want to be able to pull a fair salary. They want the salon to be less dependent on them. So they want to invest in others to grow leadership, to steer and direct the business. So in that case, sometimes they take on those additional expenses, like salaries, and that actually does decrease their bottom line. So it's funny, but so sometimes there's an increase of bottom line, sometimes there's a decrease, again, just depending on what each company's goals are. Each company has different, initiatives or direction that they want to go.
So, how does the salon owner know, when they should be bringing on a coach?
Oh yeah, if yeah, I think if a salon owner is not getting the results that they want, or if there's this frustration, if they're feeling lost or stagnant or stuck, or if they feel like it's this constant hamster wheel, maybe like they have a leadership team in place, but that leadership team isn't working well together. Um, Gosh, any of those things, and really, I think a salon owner, if they want to see a change in their business, and they just don't know how to get there, a coach a coach can just help sort priorities, help them gain clarity around direction. Yeah, sort of help create that sort of shared dialogue amongst the leadership team, set meaningful goals. Like a coach can really be a support partner for whatever the salon wants to achieve.
So, if there's any salon owners that are listening that are finding themselves struggling in their business, maybe with some of the things that you're talking about, like the hamster wheel, or maybe they're struggling with profitability, or maybe they are ready to, transition out of the business, what advice would you give to them?
Oh my gosh, do not do it alone. You do not have to do it alone. Like this is, so many owners feel like they have to figure it out on their own, that, somehow they should just know how to run a business or how to be a salon owner. And so there's a lot of trial and error that happens, which can be, waste of time. Honestly, there's lots of frustrations and mistakes. Like seriously, there are thousands of successful salons, thousands. So you do not have to reinvent the wheel. Like, do not do it alone. Build a community, get a coach, and be more gentle with yourself. Like it's a skill. It is not something that there's not a school like a salon owner school where you learn all the skills on how to run a salon. Like, yeah, so be gentle with yourself too. But yes, please do not feel like you have to do it alone.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jody. And I think that a lot of times salon owners can feel alienated that they do have to do it on their own. They have maybe a mindset that their employees depend on them and feel like they should have all the answers, and it's just not always the case. For ourselves, I think it was very clear when talking about the hamster wheel, when we felt like we had so many great ideas and so many great initiatives, and really big plans, but yet we really couldn't get to the destination that we wanted to go to. we had a great director who made the suggestion we should bring on the coach and did their homework. And since then it's become very less dependent on salon owner and more dependent on team.
Perfect. Yeah, the team has the answers. Like that's the thing. The team is the system. Like the team is what's creating success. It can't just be one or two people. Like the entire team has to be moving in the same direction, right? Yeah, a coach helps to sort of align that and create that space for that.
Yeah. And, when you mentioned that you don't have to do this alone, I think that's also partially why we created this podcast. We wanted to connect salon owners and business owners with resources. We wanted to connect them with people who are doing things in a different and interesting way. We wanted to connect them with ideas and strategies that are working in other areas, because there isn't, I don't think there's nearly enough sharing of knowledge as there should be. Like if you're a stylist, there's a lot of sharing of knowledge. You can go take classes. You can, your salon can bring educators in. But I think for salon owners, there's a lot less of that. It's not as normalized.
Yeah, it's not as normalized, but it should be. Like, gosh, you should know this other salon owners in your community, and yeah, yeah.
And I think it's out there. But it's a matter of looking for it in the right places. I remember when I opened my salon, we're an Aveda salon. The Aveda network and community was really tight. But I remember prior to that, it was very difficult to source that out. And something that a coach has also done for us is created community within our salon and community and a resource outside of our salon that we could also lean on. So yeah, that definitely helps a lot.
So Jodi, if there was one piece of advice you could give to somebody who's, at the stages of opening a salon or considering opening their own salon, kind of getting ready to take that leap, what advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, so great, because even in my even as a salon owner, I would have that question, or I'd have stylists who'd want to go and open their own salon, or I work with people who want to do that. Like there's two pieces of advice actually that I would have people consider. One, owning a salon is a totally different skill set than doing hair. So I tell people this of like, okay, all those years that you've learned or that you spent learning how to do hair, you'll need to do the same for learning how to run a business. It's a completely different skill set. Okay. So it's a lot of work. So you have to be in love. You have to love being an owner and be committed to helping others succeed for sure. And then two, that second piece of advice is sort of related to the first, is that leading others is really different than leading yourself. Like leading others is totally different than leading yourself. So that is another skill set.
That's some really good advice right there. Really good advice. So Jodi, we mentioned and we've talked about the benefits of having a coach. One of the challenges that I was faced with when I first opened my business is that I really would have liked the idea of having a coach. And I remember talking to Tom, the owner of Community, early on when we opened, and I really felt there was going to be great benefit from working with a company like Community and a personal coach, but it definitely wasn't in the budget. There wasn't a lot of room for anything in the budget. And bringing on a coach can be costly. You can budget for it accordingly, but when you're starting out, it's really tough. What advice would you have for people who know that they need more, but can't afford to have that personalized coach right now?
Yeah, if someone's interested in getting a coach, but they can't necessarily afford it at that time, yes, work with others, build a community, share and learn, be super curious, ask others what works for them, start putting some money aside so that you can eventually work with a coach. And
the community really resonates with me because that could be a great resource for you right off the hop. And it really takes very little money to do so. And it's readily available if you look for it.
Yeah. And you know what? If you make the ask, if you approach others, you find out what works for them. Oftentimes people will be more likely to say yes than you think.
Absolutely. If we do, we all want to be part of something larger than ourselves. And I do truly believe that people want to see others succeed and help others succeed. Yeah.
So Jodi, if somebody's interested in getting a salon coach, how can they get started?
Yeah, I think, I was a salon coach, first take some time. I think the first step before you even get a coach is just actually think about what you want to achieve with having a coach. that sometimes will give direction, of like, okay, what sort of coach do you want to, and then, do some research, ask for referrals from your network, make sure that that coach, I think it's important that that coach is trained or has some experience in the industry if you're looking for, a salon specific coach. And Cunity is a great place to start because Cunity has incredible coaches that all have the experience of owning salons or being salon leaders. And then I think, set up introductory calls like with potential coaches. So if you do some research and you find a bunch of companies and it's like Cunity's one of them, set up introductory calls with potential coaches where you can get to know each other to see if you jive, if you fit together. Those are some steps I think people can take for sure.
Absolutely.
I think you nailed it. I think there's a lot out there in terms of education, so to say. I don't necessarily think it qualifies as coaching, but do your homework. I think you nailed it. Do your homework, set up calls, get to know who you're speaking with and what you can expect from them, and go from there. I think community is a great place to start. Like you said it, all the coaches have been salon owners or are currently still salon owners. And it's a really great community where you can tell that the company itself has a great culture, and that really spills into everything that you guys are delivering to us. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for joining us today, Jodi, and sharing your wisdom. We really appreciate it. And it's been so nice to have you. If people are interested in learning more about you or maybe getting you as their salon coach, how can they find you? How can
recommend.
Yeah,
Highly
we love
recommend.
Jodi.
Well, definitely, check out, like if people are interested in implementing Cunity systems into their businesses, go to, check out cunityinc.com for sure. Because again, like it's incredible coaches, and the company itself is so committed to elevating the professional beauty industry. So definitely go to cunityinc.com. If you want to reach me directly of course I have LinkedIn. I'm not great at LinkedIn, but feel free to email me at jodi@jodiohama.com, jodi@jodiohama.com. Very easy. And I can definitely get you in touch with people. And yeah, so that's probably the easiest. And thanks for you two for having me. Like I really appreciate the work that we get to do together, and I love and appreciate the fact that you're helping other salon owners and helping elevate the salon industry. So thanks for that as well.
Thank you, Jodi.
Thanks, Jodi. Thank you for listening. Make sure you share this episode with your team, leave us a review, and tune in for the next episode.